I know that in Europe there are many times fears that are present but oftentimes generated by people who are against immigration and trying to keep out people who may be from another country, another religion, another race. And in that sense, I would say that we all need to work together. One of the values of this trip is precisely to raise the world's attention to the possibility that dialogue and friendship between Muslims and Christians is possible. I think one of the great lessons that Lebanon can teach to the world is precisely showing a land where Islam, Christianity are both present and are respected, and that there is a possibility to live together, to be friends. Stories, testimony, witnesses that we heard even in the past 2 days of people helping each other, Christians with Muslims, both of whom had their villages destroyed, for example, of saying we can come together and work together. I think those are lessons that would be important also to be heard in Europe or North America.
So, Pastor Mark, it would appear that we have our maybe our first woke pope. Yeah. And he's a man, I looked it up, he's a man with an associate's degree in chemistry, worked in a food processing plant, and then did some stuff in between there, became the most politically influential religious voice on the planet. And since he has used that platform to bless same-sex couples, condemn capitalism, lecture on climate policy, bless Iraq, and call Christian conservatives dangerous. So what is your scorecard for this Pope over the first year of his...
Yeah, well, it's a conundrum because he'll be conservative on the pro-life issue, LGBTQIA and the alphabet soup people, and you're like, okay, I appreciate that. And he wants to eradicate borders, even though he lives in a place that has the most secure border of any nation in the world. You actually can't, so Vatican City is actually a country, and you can't enter unless the Pope welcomes you, and there is no permanent citizenship. You're only there at the behest of the Pope to serve. So the guy who is the most anti-border lives within the strongest border of any nation in the world, which is just a fun fact. But when it comes to issues of like Islam, I'm working on this book, The Four Horsemen. And so I just pulled up a quote. And this is from Vatican News. So this isn't me going to some critic. He says, Jesus taught us to welcome one another as brothers. And this applies first and foremost to us Christians, Jews, and Muslims who worship the one God and who refer, albeit in different ways, to Abraham as father in faith. Mm-hmm. And so he's saying that because Abraham is the kind of the father of faith for Christians, Jews, and Muslims, that we're all worshiping the same God. We're not. And so, Jesus said, I am the God of Abraham. Mm-hmm. So our God is Jesus Christ. That's not the God that is worshiped as the God of Judaism or Islam. And in fact, I've got this in here as well. Islam flatly teaches that Jesus was not the Son of God, that he didn't die on the cross, he didn't rise from the dead, and he is not superior to Muhammad. And so even a good Jew would say, we disagree with the Christians, and a good Muslim would say, we disagree with the Jew. A good Christian would say, I disagree with the Jews and the Muslims. A good Muslim would just say they disagree with Christianity and with Judaism. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to create some sort of relational connectivity. And so he used the words, relationship, and he talked about, people loving each other and serving each other. Yeah, that's personal. What we're not talking about is relational. We're talking about governance.
Yep.
In a country, is it to be run by Sharia law or not? Because if you're a devout Muslim, you're like, it needs to be run by Sharia law. Well, this isn't relational. Yeah. Right? This is legal. This is federal. Mm-hmm. This is governmental. And so he's taking two issues and he's confusing them. But to me, just hearing him speak, he's a soft man. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the problem with the Catholic papacy, the fact that they don't allow their priests to get married. They don't allow them to have children. It entices a soft kind of man to go into an academic and monastic life. Mm-hmm. And some things publicly, they require hard men. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with wars, when you're dealing with immigration and borders, when you're dealing with political issues, soft men are not best capable of making those decisions. And so these are guys too that just practically, they haven't been hardened by fatherhood. They haven't been hardened by marriage. Their instincts toward women and children and being a defender and protector character, they're not strong. And so these tend to be weak men, they tend to be woke men, and they tend to be soft men. There are exceptions, but for the most part, a very healthy, strong man wouldn't even want to take a life of celibacy and chastity and poverty. A fact that a man aspires to that. Now, if God calls you to that, I get it. But if that's the job description and only those men can take that job, you are going to lose the best men and you're going to lose the hard men. And this is what you get. You get a very soft man who's wearing a dress talking about relationships, when in Islam, you've got very hard men that can marry up to 4 women and can beat their wives, and they believe in 3 options: you would convert, you die, or you pay a tax as an infidel. And I'll tell you what, those guys are going to populate the earth and they're going to control the future. And a guy like this, he's got no legacy, he's got no family, he's got no future. And so if this plays itself out, this is the kind of person that gets crushed by Islam.
100%, and used to spread Islam. I got asked a bunch this week, is this Pope the Antichrist? And it felt like a really loaded question, obviously. So I did some research and shocked to see that that's not a new question in history, especially in church fathers and Luther, Calvin, Knox, Spurgeon. This was something they talked about often. Within
the Reformed tradition of Christianity, there's always been a subset that believes that the Whore of Babylon is the Catholic Church and that the Antichrist is the Pope.
That's wild.
We'll see when we get there.
He doesn't seem capable enough.
No, you would need somebody a little stronger than that. But if I'm Catholic, I'm frustrated because now you've got the Pope speaking on matters that they're not a subject matter expert. And so, you can be a subject matter expert in one area, but that doesn't mean that it transfers to another area. Like, this is why I don't want
climate change and capitalism.
Yeah.
What?
Well, and so Catholicism being a global, faith community, a lot of it is in socialistic nations. And so you're going to want to have a sensitivity or even a tolerance towards socialism. But from a biblical perspective, the Bible is clear about private property ownership, and stealing is, forbidden in the commandments. And so socialism by definition is the first step to Marxism. And it was Karl Marx that said that, and then Vladimir Lenin confirmed that. He said it's a 2-step, and the first step is socialism, the second step is communism. We know that communism is completely and totally atheistic, and so there's a lack of courage, and this is why the Pope is fighting with the president. You've got a soft man and a hard man. And the way people are dividing is oftentimes not over ideology, but simply, are you attracted to a soft man or are you attracted to a hard man?
Yeah.
And hard men are not going to be attracted to this Pope.
No. Yeah, I can't even listen to him. I mean, that's the longest. Every time we saw the clip a few months ago of him blessing a rock, an ice chunk or something like.
Well, and taking off his shoes and walking around with Muslims and honoring, their sacred places. It's like. So this is where
the Catholic Church is like 5 years late on being woke.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that was 2020, guys.
Well, but a part of it is as well is like, again, like a soft man doesn't do conflict. A soft man tries to do nuance.
Yeah.
And we're in a day when, quite frankly, like nuance is over. And I think in particular, younger generations, but especially younger men, they're like, I'm not looking for nuance. I'm not looking for, really crafted statements that try to avoid conflict and controversy. It is more of a prophetic time of just like, hey, be clear and have the conflict.
Yeah. We are seeing record number of young men flocking to the Catholic Church. Mainly, they're sick of big LED walls, the nuanced teachings, things that just look like the world. There's a whole generation of men that are getting saved as a result of Charlie Kirk and his martyrdom. But they're showing up to churches and just seeing soft, limp-wristed pulpits. So then they're seeing Catholicism as something that has tradition and sacrament and, this is something I can latch on and follow. What would you tell those young men as they're trying to discern and understand the difference and what is the Catholic Church? What is the Christian Church? What is the differences? What is the Pope's role in all this?
Yeah, so if you're trying to find a church, it's a tough day, and that's what we continually hear is It's hard to find a church. And the reason that some people are, especially young men, are maybe moving toward Orthodoxy or Catholicism, maybe they were in an evangelical church. And when an evangelical church slides, it's always to the left. It never slides to the right. Like, you don't, very rarely, if ever, do you see a denomination or a network of churches slide to the right. Mm-hmm. They always slide to the left. And they just keep moving the line. And if you're in that, community, you're wondering, okay, where does it end? And why are we going this direction? So then you look at Catholicism or you look at Orthodoxy and you think, well, they've been around for thousands of years. But depending upon which tradition you're in and depending upon which church or community you're in, it could be even more to the left. Mm-hmm. And so it's less about being under the right big umbrella and finding a local community that is led by someone that has the courage of conviction to stay in their lane and to not deviate. But that is hard because I'll be honest, like right now, my generation, running Christian churches, denominations, networks, seminaries, Bible colleges, publishing houses, they're almost exclusively soft woke, nuanced, third way, trying to navigate between the left and the right. And when they punch, they only punch to the right. They never punch to the left. That's my whole generation. Mm-hmm. And they're failing miserably. And they're not setting an example of good fatherhood and strength and courage for young men. And they're more worried about approval from the left than they are helping young men. Mm-hmm. And so I think for a lot of young men, they just walk into church and they're like, they're not even trying to help. I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to do the stuff that the Bible says and my big brother, Charlie Kirk, said, but they're not helping me to do that. But again, think of a Catholic church. How is that guy going to help you do that?
No.
You're like, hey, so when you and your wife have conflicts, I don't have a wife. Okay, so when you're trying to launch a business, he's like, I took a vow of poverty. I don't do money. Okay, well, raising your kids, like I don't have any kids. So how is this guy supposed to help? Thanks for watching this video. It's a great honor to help you learn the Bible. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I promise you there'll be more to come.